Okay, two words. So two people, are they signed up?
Just one sign.
Okay. All right.
We're good to begin. We are recording.
All right, let's do the call to order. He's doing it.
Chair Watson,
Here, present.
Vice Chair Hudson, Member Strong,
Present.
Member Chisholm,
Here.
Member Emmelhans,
Here.
Member Johnson,
Here.
Member Hart.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Outstanding. All right, motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Anybody?
I motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Second?
I second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Good, AJ?
Public forum, an opportunity for the public to address the EAC. This is expectation that the presentation will be conducted in a respectful manner. Committee members may ask questions for clarification, but there will not be any dialogue. Please limit your presentation to 5 minutes. And I have not received any email requests for public comment.
Okay.
Danielle,
Yes.
all yours.
Oh, great. Oh, okay. I'm a homeowner at 3255 South Corona Street. I've actually lived in that house for about 35 years. My father was the original owner, and the neighbor immediately to the south of me, 3257, has an abundance of cottonwood and elm trees that I've had looked at multiple times by a licensed arborist. It has fallen on my property and done significant damage 3 to 4 times in the last 4 years, with no reparations from her. And the insurance company has taken care of everything that's been needed to, but she has not done any kind of mitigation since those trees have fallen. She has not reached out to me actually, because I've been hit or miss actually living in the house to kind of requite some of those damages, and I cannot take any legal action to force her to cut those trees down since they are in her property. There was one time when a large branch from the elm, I believe, fell onto my house, and the insurance company actually went after her insurance company. It did so much damage that I had to have a brand new siding and brand new roof placed on the house, and they said that the tree was technically a shared tree, but the seed of that tree originated in her yard. So they would not pay for any of the damages because they called it technically a shared tree. The latest one is a branch from a backyard tree, a different one, fell onto my power lines and pulled the power box down. She also did not reach out to me about those damages. I had to talk to her. Like, I had to search her out and try to get her to do anything about it. She did say that she would take the trees down. However, the initial company that she hired to do that fired her because she was not providing a safe environment for them to work in. I did go visit the property today. It's currently for sale, part of it because of these issues. And I did see that she has taken down the one tree in the back that initially caused the damage to the power line. But the large tree that has now fallen twice on my property, she has not made any moves to do. I don't know if that's part of it. We're not really on speaking terms because it's just very, very difficult to just talk with her. I've tried to bring the police in, but they pass it off to code enforcement. Code enforcement tells that the arborist needs to come and condemn the tree. The arborists aren't willing to do that, even though technically in the Englewood trees and shrubs section over here that I'm looking at says that the owner of the properties are to be responsible for any dead and or diseased trees need to be removed from the property. This is a diseased tree, not quite dead, but it is very diseased and continues to fall and cause havoc. And she has not done anything so far yet. So I guess small claims court is my next course of action. But
Questions, anybody?
Does the tree appear to be diseased, or is it just, it is?
yes, I've had actually a few different arborists from 2 different companies look at it. They do agree that it is diseased. but they do not feel comfortable declaring it dead per se. Otherwise, it would have to be a forced removal. They just don't feel comfortable doing that. They do say that it is diseased, and unless it has constant pruning, which it has not received, it's going to continue to go down that disease route. I don't know how long until it is dead.
Has code enforcement intervened? Have
They-
they talked to your neighbors?
They have come by, in April, I believe, they came out, because I called, but that was in the wintertime when all of the leaves were down, you couldn't see how much was going on, and they did see that tree in the front part of the property, and didn't do anything about that. They said that initially in that April drive-by, there was no violations. In the springtime, though, you can see, like, there's quite a lot hanging over onto my property, and I have actually out of pocket mitigated some of those limbs myself that I've never been reimbursed for.
And you mentioned it was determined to be a shared tree.
It was when the insurance company filed to have like subrogation, they did a subrogation to her. When they filed it initially, her insurance company proved that it was a shared tree. However, I don't believe so because the seed of that tree originated on her property. And it's grown so much to where it's now slightly on mine, but the vast majority of it is hers. I would not consider it a shared tree, though that was what the insurance company found.
I see.
But if it was like a different investigation, they might dig into it further to see that. Because I do have, what should I call it, like the arborist company that I looked through, they said that there is precedence that if the seed originated in whichever's, in the property owners, wherever the seed originated, that's who owns it, originated on her side.
Got it.
Mr. Chair, can I ask Officer Boudreaux what codes relate to this type of situation and what they say or don't say? Just like the letter of the code, how does this bump into code?
Yeah, so code enforcement, since we're not arborists, we cannot deem the tree diseased or dead or dying. I mean, some of the trees are pretty obvious if they're dead, but in cases with trees, especially with neighbors, standard procedure is we do get that letter from an arborist who is licensed by the state to say that yes, this tree is diseased. These are the steps that need to be taken. If an arborist does provide that documentation, we can issue our tree notice to the property, which gives the property owner 45 days to take action on that. If they get the tree trimmed or maintained or whatever else, or they get their own arborist to come out and review whatever other arborist, we'll go from there. It just depends on the situation. We can review some of that stuff through the city arborist, just for him to give his professional opinion if we get to
Sure.
contradicting. But the city does not inspect trees on private properties or determines if they're dead or dying.
Do you know, I mean, thank you, that's a process. Is that process underway right now or is that process yet to begin?
Oh, no,
Okay.
it's underway.
Okay.
We've been using it for several years.
I mean, is it underway in this example? Do you know?
From this, I'm not aware of this
Okay.
case yet.
Okay.
Um,
So if I was in her shoes, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
and I had the exact same situation, what am I to do? Am I to call up code enforcement and say, help, please intervene or take a look at this? Or like, what's the trigger mechanism to get code enforcement and the process moving?
In cases similar to this, it would be the arborist letter. To
Okay.
start there, to say that the tree is diseased or dying.
Okay.
And then once we get that letter, we can move forward. with
All right, so I
enforcement.
give you that arborist letter and then probably the process would either begin or not begin at that point.
Correct.
I do have one from an arborist. He deemed it
Okay.
as diseased, not dead, but this was actually written
But it's diseased.
1/3/2023, so almost a year and a half ago.
Okay.
Recommending extensive pruning and nothing has been done.
Do you have a copy?
Yes, you can have this one.
Is that soon enough, being a year and a half ago?
I can meet with her after the meeting.
Okay.
And look through the paperwork and then see where we can go from there.
Okay. Well, the meeting's gonna take a while. I mean, is that something, would you meet with him later?
Sure. I might as well. I've already waited.
Thank you.
Well, it is interesting because now Englewood has an arborist, which heretofore, or up until a year or so ago, did not. So again, should that code/process be clarified to include the city arborist in the process?
No.
It's okay.
Because the city arborist is currently responsible for city parks and city properties. The city does not, unless it's an obvious safety hazard
Okay.
that's imminent, the city will not abate, the city will not check
Okay.
any trees on private property, because it is private property, unless it is an imminent safety issue, then the city can intervene on certain situations.
Thank you.
This kind of falls under the changes we made for the boll weevil, whatever it was.
Dashboard.
Ash borer. Thank you. It was 2 years ago, I don't remember. Emerald ash borer, that's the one. So,
Can I ask you one question? How long has this been going on?
Since I own the property, I've had 3 branches fall. Since he has owned the property, again, I bought it from my parents. He's had multiple issues with those trees over the 30-year period that he has bought it. None as catastrophic as in the last 4 years, though.
Okay, thank you.
so would it be best for her to wait for this or come see you tomorrow? I'm just saying, because this is gonna, we're gonna do a presentation here in a minute.
Oh, okay. I will be in town tomorrow. That would be best.
I just didn't want you guys to have to sit here for an hour and a half.
Okay.
The arborist stuff.
Yes,
I'll
yes,
send them the addresses and then I can give you a call.
yes, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. All right, is that it for the public forum?
That's all I have, yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next is the final implemented grass and weed posting notice of violation. Does Dave have that, or?
Yep, it should be in front of you.
Oh. I was so impressed you put this in front of me. I was like, oh my God, he had it all ready for me. And I didn't even see this, so, okay, yeah.
I made one observation to Dave that we had asked, actually, Edie and I had asked to have a phone number more predominant on this in some place. And he had mentioned that he wasn't going to be able to do it on the one on the back with the big blue box, but I had mentioned maybe doing something larger at the bottom so that they have a very obvious, kind of contact us, because I think that they don't tend to contact.
Or underline.
Or underline and bolding or something like that. Can I make a recommendation that this be a more prominent presentation of the phone number so that we know sort of next steps on this?
Yeah, is that something we could bold?
I can check.
Okay, yeah, I mean, bold or underline and/or bold and underline.
Or take that line at the bottom where it says, should you have any questions, put it all the way at the bottom, make it a larger font, make it bold, make it sort of the next step thing. I think that would be more effective.
Relieve somebody's tension because
Yeah.
they're already
Yeah, exactly.
anxious.
It
Exactly.
cannot be moved because that's the layout it has to be in for municipal code.
Okay,
But if it needs to be bold or underlined, I can check into that.
thank you.
Can I get a copy of this, the law on the weeds and the code enforcement? I haven't been able to find the link, I don't know why, but to that area, I want to take a look at that. And have any changes been done to that in this past year?
To the grass and weed one specifically?
Yes.
No.
Okay. So that's been a concern of mine. I got a notice on my property last spring of right after all those day after day after day, month after month of rain of grass in the back on the alley area. And I went and cut it down. And then 4 months later, I don't go out on the alley. I rarely, maybe a couple times a year, go out on the alley area behind my house. And I got a 24-hour notice. I have medical issues. I cannot do that kind of work in 24 hours. That does not give me time to get someone to do it either. Has that been, I was told that was a change that was coming up, or that it was in statute, or not in statute, in the law. Is that true, 24-hour notice once you get that notice 6 months to 4 months ahead of time?
So this 24-hour notice was strictly a courtesy. The city's not required to give that 24-hour notice.
Even though it's 4 months span of time and it's a different set of weeds. I don't think that's right.
The current code, and that's something this body can address, states in there that it must be maintained. So it doesn't matter if it's a week or 4 months, it must be maintained.
I'd like to see this committee look at that because that's not fair to people. People up and down my block were really upset about it. And that's one reason I wanted to be on this committee. I was on this years ago on this committee, and I don't remember people being treated in that way on different issues. You were given a notice and you were given a period of time to clean it up. I didn't know that grass had grown up back there. And it was just one section about as long as this table. I'd like to look at that. Can you send me that code on the weeds?
I would like to make a suggestion, because that is my
This is it.
question. That is my question about this. You have all designed this, so this will be educational, but it's also a notice of violation. And if people don't take care of this, then the next notice of violation, it becomes a nuisance. Is that correct?
So because grass and weed is in Title 15, it's automatically a nuisance under the first warning, notice, or anything. It's automatically a nuisance if that property allows those weeds to get over the 6 inches in height, because it's already in Title 15.
Okay, but then I have a problem with this also, and I really would like all of you to look at this, because if it's already a nuisance, why are we educating people? I think this is something, and that is exactly what you all were asked to look at when Carson Green left. And I think that you need to go back and look at that now. Unless the committee just wants to move forward and approve this.
Rita, I'm confused. And it's probably me.
Well, it could be me too.
Okay. I thought this was an effort to clarify, and that would move us down the road so that we wouldn't have the reaction of, oh my God, I got a 24-hour notice, I got to get this thing fixed. So I thought this was an effort to address that very issue, which is, can we be a little kinder about it, and can we be more clear in what we're doing? I mean, this says this is not a summons or a complaint. It's to allow you the opportunity to correct the above violation instead of receiving a complaint. So what am I missing? What's the problem? I don't get it.
Okay, can I just share something? What I think this is this is written both ways. So on the back, this has to comply legally. So it will serve as the first notice. Is that correct, or is my understanding wrong?
No, it will serve as the first notice.
But the first notice is a heads up. I mean, the first notice is saying, pay attention. You're not in trouble yet, but you got to take some action and get this straightened out. I mean, that's how my simple mind sees it. That doesn't mean I'm right.
Not the way this is written. It sounds like you get this notice.
Please read to me, and I'm not trying to be difficult.
And
but
no,
please read to me what is misleading or threatening in this communication.
It's confusing I agree with her. It's confusing that the back sounds like a formal violation, and that you have, where was it, someplace in here, said 14 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, 14 days to comply with it. I consider that a serious notice, which is 14 days is fine. But you're putting this is in the same category as if you had snow and ice on your sidewalk, correct? You do the same type of notices with that?
No, because that was redone, and that's under a different.
Okay, so what is your procedure with snow and ice?
So snow and ice, they receive basically a first and final notice to remove the snow and ice, and then any subsequent violation is an automatic summons.
And is snow and ice a $50 fine?
Yes, I believe so.
And is it always $50 or is it more depending on?
From my understanding, it's a tiered process, and then if there's after so many, it's a summons in front of the judge.
Okay, and I do think that they criminalized snow removal. They changed it a little bit, and that was a couple years ago, correct? Was that before you got on?
Yes.
And so you have 24 hours after the snow stops falling to shovel your walks, and then it's an
Yeah, that's fair.
automatic violation. But this is different. And I mean, I have struggled with this being educational on one side and then the legal posting on the other side. It's,
So I guess I don't understand where the confusion is, because this isn't a summons or a complaint. It's what they would have gotten anyway, except people were thinking that first one was a summons and complaint. So we softened the language so they would understand that it's not a summons and complaint this time, but the next time it would be. So all we've done is changed this piece so that it doesn't look like a summons or a complaint.
oh, okay, it doesn't look like a summons or a complaint, but it really is.
But it's,
It's,
Okay, I'm just telling you, when you get the notice, you figure out how happy you're gonna be. When you don't realize that 14 days from now, you're gonna be in trouble.
AJ, this is a first notice, right?
Yes.
Why does it not say first notice?
That's how you can get around it, by doing first
and it
notice.
says after
What's
14
that?
days.
We don't have a first notice.
Okay.
But it is a
You won't
first
get a
notice.
second
But it's
chance.
saying posting notice of violation, so
No.
in my mind, is there a second, are there two notices on this? Do they get two notifications? Or do they just have their 14-day period, and then you have
Not according to
the
this.
right to be able to evade it, you know? Is that the way this is written?
After 14 days per municipal code, we have the right to summons or abate at that time.
Okay,
However, what we have been doing, including last year, is doing that courtesy 24-hour notice before we take any action against the property.
okay, so how's the 24-hour notice initiated? Is it a call? Is it a note on the door? What is it?
It's either a complaint or re-inspections.
And if it's a different situation, it's different grass coming up, how is that the same violation? And you have in here that it does have on the back, you have 14 days, and then the city can abate the nuisance at your expense or issue a summons and complaint or both. So basically you're telling them either you take care of this in 14 days or we will cut it down and we will charge you. And it's expensive for the city to do that and for the person to have to pay for it. I really don't like this. I think this city can be a little bit kinder in dealing with these situations, and especially on when grass grows up. One's in the spring, one's in the fall, and you give somebody 24 hours and they have health issues or they're out of town for the weekend, of you coming in and cutting that for, what, $300-400 is what they were trying to charge me. I couldn't do it myself. I was not able to do that physically. And I did not have time to get anyone. And there were other people on the same block that they were livid. And it was not fair. One was a brand new resident on a rental property. And they're kind of like, I didn't even live here when the first notice went out, and I have no idea what's going on. I think there's a better way to do that, rather than what is the rush to do this and just give a 24-hour notice. Give them 7-day notice the second time. But 24-hour notice, what are weeds doing to hurt anybody? Yes, they do need to be trimmed. Yes, it does need to be done. But why 24 hours and why be so hard on your citizens? That's not being fair to the citizens.
Can I ask, is the issue that the code is wrong or the communications about the code? My understanding
You're
is
saying
this
the
is the
code.
communication that reflects what the code says. That's my understanding.
Mhm.
What I'm hearing from you is you're not in agreement with what the code says. So my question is, should we be talking to city council and saying, we recommend you change the code? Or
would
are
have
we
to-
going to keep arguing over, I mean, if this is inaccurate about the code, then there's a problem. If it's accurately reflecting what the code says, then I think the discussion is about the code itself.
So can I ask a question, AJ? Years ago, and I don't know when this got changed, but first you got a 7-day notice, right? Was that the first notice of violation, was 7 days to cut your grass? And then you got, or did you get 14 days on the first notice and then 7 days on the second?
So the city does have a notice of violation, which is an optional or discretional, basically it's a warning. Here's the violation, this is what it is. And then after 7 days, we'd have to restart with the 14-day process. The 7 days in a lot of cases is going away because people want that enforcement.
So
Yeah.
why is it going away? Has council voted on it? This committee hasn't talked about that. I don't really know that we've talked about it in city council, and I think some things change perhaps with city council not being totally aware.
So the notice of violation is 100% discretional. It's not required, it's not enforceable. There is no action that can be taken except the report's generated that a notice was issued, and that's it. Moving forward, the posting notice of what you have in front of you is the actual official notice that has to be given for the city to take any action against a property for a violation. When I first started, a lot of our stuff was notice of violations, and people knew and understood that, and no action was done because they knew nothing could be done. That transitioned probably 2019, 2020 of us being requested. I don't know specifically who, if it was through city management or who else, to be more strict on these cases and get them moving into court faster because we would have cases that were out longer. And so because of that, especially for repeat offenders, for known violations that people are educated on, it goes straight to the posting notice, and that way it's enforceable after the 14 days.
So was the law the way we had it originally unconstitutional? Why couldn't it be enforced? Or it just wasn't
It was
enforced?
just a long process.
Oh, yeah, it was a long process. And I mean, I understand why they did what they did with snow. Because people would get a 7-day notice and the snow would be gone, melted before the 7 days was up. So I understand that, but
How the notice of violation is currently written in municipal code per the city attorney's office, it doesn't have any of the language that allows us to enforce it. There's no language for a summons, there's no language for an abatement, there's no language for us to do anything else except, it's basically a written conversation of, hey, your grass and weeds are over 6 inches, they need to be cut. That's it.
let me ask you, if this committee discussed that and about putting enforcement things in it, and recommended that to council, could that change it?
I think if they want to do it under the grass and weed, if they want to recommend a different process like snow and ice, or even change the requirements, I believe last time it was brought up to change the height requirements from 6 inches to a foot or something else. That's up to this body to recommend. I can't give that recommendation.
Before I was on the committee, and I remember they had problems with problem properties, that the people were not abating the problem, they were not taking care of the problem. And there was a long, involved process to get those things taken care of. But this has gone the other extreme. The way this is being enforced now is unfair to the property owners who would like to do it, but don't know that, the weeds were that high. They were on a section about like this in my backyard, which is 50 feet wide, I think. But the way it's being enforced now is not fair to your citizens. I would like to either see the city council look at it, or I thought this code enforcement committee that was what this committee did, was look at the codes and then make recommendations to the city council on what should be done. But I went to the city council when this came up with me, and I was told you need to go to the committee and you need to go to the head of code enforcement, which I did.
So, I mean, it kind of goes back and forth. So
Yeah.
council can ask this committee to look at some things to change it, but this committee can also look at things and decide what to do.
You know, the 1516-1 doesn't have any timeline in it at all, okay? And I think that that's what we're referring to, is that you have the discretion, code enforcement has the discretion in determining how long that is. Is that correct, AJ?
In regards to the notice or enforcement period or?
Notification or enforcement. Because all it says is that you're not supposed to have your, weeds more than 6 inches. Is there anything in there that I'm missing?
I think, I believe, and AJ say, but I believe once you're given your first notice, then the clock starts.
But the notice is a discretionary issue, is what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
No,
No.
this is the first notice. And what he's saying is the 24-hour notice, they may give that to you as a courtesy, but this is the notice. And this little strip on the back side is what tells what's going to happen. You have 14 days in which to abate the above described nuisances. In the event that you do not abate the nuisances within the 14 days of the city of Englewood may, at its option, abate the nuisance at your expense, or in the alternative issue a summons and complaint or both, directing that you appear in the municipal court. So it really leaves the discretion with code enforcement.
The discretion of enforcement is here, is with the code enforcement. There is nothing in the code which indicates the 14 days, anything. The code only reads every occupant, 6 inches, thereupon remove, cause removal. There's no dating, there's no timeline on this at all written into the code.
If there is no timeline in the code, then how can you enforce this?
So there is under the sections that covers like the actual notices.
Right.
That's later in the code
Yeah.
that covers multiple different sections, including Title 11, Title 7, Title 15. For the actual legal wording on the back, that's in code that says that if there's a violation, this must be issued and the resident must be given that 14 days to comply, or this will happen.
So that is in the code
Correct.
elsewhere, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
But it's not indicated on here.
Not in that code because the process affects multiple sections of it.
Maybe what would resolve this issue is if violation, you defined better the violation as if that violation, like the grass in my alley, was cut down in the spring, that violation was taken care of. That, to me, is what legally, what I did. I complied. But then you come back in the fall and grass in another area has come up again. That's a new violation to me. And that I should have been given notice, and they said, no, you got a notice in the spring, you had 24 hour. I couldn't do it.
That's what I'm hearing is the issue.
And it was in the heat of the summer. I cannot work outside in the heat of the summer. And so I would have had to get somebody to do it. I believe it was on a Friday, and there was no way for me to get hold of anybody and get anybody to help me do it. And I didn't think that was fair. That was something totally new. I'd complied with what you asked me to do. But something new had come up in that had grown back, and I had not seen it, that had happened. Otherwise I would have cut it down. So that to me should be a new violation because it is a new situation. I did what I was asked to do. I complied.
Mm-hmm.
That other should be a new violation. If you do that, that resolves the problem.
'Cause it
How,
sounds
how
like-
is that a
Sounds
problem?
like the 14-day notice would have
Oh, yeah,
plenty
yeah.
of time.
Yes,
but you
most
didn't
definitely. I'm
get
not
it.
complaining about that. I'm complaining about 24 hours.
So that's an issue.
When it's not a safety issue, it's not gonna make somebody fall. It's not gonna hurt anybody. Everybody up and down the alley was in the same situation. Me, it grew back and they just hadn't gotten back to cut it again. I think if you were doing another notice, whether it be 7 days or 14 days, that's a new violation because I complied.
Didn't we address that like recently?
Yeah, there was no way for them to go back and check every summons that was given.
I think that's part of the
And-
job, isn't it?
And that was, you're right, I remember that. And here's what I really think this committee needs to do, and it would help you all too. We need to figure out how to make it fair on both sides. I mean, code enforcement has issues with, enforcing the law, or maybe not enough help or whatever. But how can we get a balance? Because I think this is the type of thing that we're gonna start seeing, especially now that this has happened. Because I don't know how you can do an educational process and a notice of violation at the same time. It's never pleasant to get a notice of violation. I mean, I've gotten one myself. But I think that Linda brings up a really good point, and that's exactly why the previous chair was upset, because he got a notice of violation at the same time. And there were a bunch of people that got notice of violations. There has to be a balance, because I know this, Englewood in a lot of places looks worse than I've ever seen it in my entire life in the city. So we do want to have rules in place that we need to enforce, but we also need to enforce them in a way that it needs to be equitable and give the people time. And perhaps if some of the things that this committee would decide, maybe council would have to look at more budget money for code enforcement to hire more officers. I don't know what the solution is, and I don't really know what code enforcement needs. I mean, this really fixes your all problem, correct?
It really doesn't fix or help any issue. It's the process. We have a lot of us that either live in the city and so it does affect us because we live here, we own property here, whatever else, and yes, we see it just like you all do. But this is ultimately, if there's a change in code or anything else, it's ultimately up to this committee if that needs to change. For the posting notice, the shift has changed. Probably in the last 3 weeks, our office has received probably well over 100 complaints of grass and weeds this year. And there's a lot of citizens that don't like it. And as soon as that first yard gets over 6 inches, they're already making phone calls.
So my
and
question
then-
is, has this been on hold? Really, have you been issuing any notices, or are you waiting till this committee decides?
We're issuing our notice that was issued last year until this gets approved and move forward. If this doesn't get approved and move forward, we'll continue to issue our notice that we used last year.
Okay.
So I'm understanding a little better here. This is better than what we did last year, but it does not strike to the core issue, which is the code and the code enforcement process is still unclear. So I'm making a note here. Well, we got two kinds of notices. We got a 24-hour notice, and that's discretionary. We don't really know what that means. Then we have an official notice of violation. That's this one. And then it's summons and complaint. I'm a picture person.
No.
I just see A, B, C, D. In other words, there's a process. It starts here. This is how many days.
This is the first step in the process.
What's the 24-hour notice?
That's the second step in the process. process.
Okay, that's a.
That's if
But
they
it's a
don't
courtesy, so
comply.
it may or may
I
not
guess it's a
happen.
little
Yeah, that's
confusing.
not,
Yeah, we're just
That's
talking
if they
about-
don't do it.
But I'm just saying.
Okay.
If you
But
don't
what
do
I'm
it,
saying
that's
is,
different.
It just seems
Yeah,
like
that's when
this
you
is
get
being
it.
made
Yes.
much more
No,
difficult.
I
than
got
it
it in the
used to be.
fall.
It
I
seems to me,
complied.
there's a flow
Well, they were
diagram,
wrong.
and some
But that's-
new
they told
person
me
who
that's-
moves into Englewood,
But
and they get
That needs
not
to
this
change.
piece of
That's
paper,
what
or
needs
maybe
to-
something
But
like
this
that.
would be the
Well,
first.
And they go,
I
okay,
hope you
I'm at
feel-
step one, I've got so many days to
Yeah,
deal with
I
it,
did, I went to the police
boom.
chief.
And I also think the other issue,
What's wrong?
yeah, if I cut my weeds in the spring, and you come back in the fall, to me, that's a new violation.
Mhm.
That's not.
Yes,
That's the
And,
big
and
issue.
and I have a
Yes.
hard time believing that
Yes.
that's an impossible thing to figure out. Surely there's a database that says, Michael Chisholm got a notice in May for his weeds, and here we are in September. Come on, somebody
well, they,
knows I got a
the
violation.
gentleman that I talked to that gave me the 24-hour notice said, well, you had a violation in the spring.
Yeah,
I said I cut the weeds.
exactly.
You
And
have
that's the
24
issue,
hours.
is we've gone
No,
through this in the past
he was
about
wrong.
the termination of those notices. You know, where's the first notice stop and the next one
Right.
start?
Right,
And I think those are the kind of things that this committee can step in and say, you know what, you get a notice in the spring for a violation, that's different than a notice in the fall.
right.
A notice in the fall kind of resets a clock,
Mhm.
but we have to tell them that that's what we think ought to happen.
Yes, that's what I'm asking for and what my neighbors were asking for too.
That's a training issue.
Hmm.
Well, it could
No,
be
no,
a-
That was
that's
the
a,
policy.
that's an official issue.
Yeah,
That's a
we can
code
set that
issue
in
because it's in,
No.
yeah, it is, because it's in the code that if you get a first notice, you get a second notice. There's no time limit on that first, on this notice. So 14
You
days,
only get a second notice if you do not comply.
No,
that's not what happened. That's the
So let
problem.
me-
That's
let me
right,
clarify
and he
real
was misinformed. He was not trained.
But he was trained.
that's the way.
But he
they
wasn't
enforce it.
trained
So let's
because
do this. Let's
he
do
would
this.
have known if
Clarify
he
the
came
process.
back.
In the next
I think
meeting,
there's some confusion.
in the next meeting, let's review the notice, steps and timelines in order and see where we sit. And then we will review it at that point and see where we are.
That would be great.
Let's just plan on that for the next meeting. Sadly, the next meeting isn't until July.
Why don't we do it now?
We could,
Because it
well,
has to be on the
it
agenda.
has to be on the agenda and we have the training video that's supposed to occur
Oh.
15 minutes ago.
Here's my thought. The weeds are growing as we speak. And the original thought was, can we soften the message? I think this softens the message. I think the other piece is, somebody's got to look at this code. There's something confusing, unclear, incomplete.
I think until we look at everything else going forward, I don't think we can do this.
Well,
I just, because right at this point, if we're not changing the timelines, as she stated, then why would we soften this to make it look like,
But is this better than what they've got?
no, we want,
You don't think
apparently
this is
you want
better than
them,
what goes out right now?
I don't know.
I
Isn't that the
personally
same?
think that notice is nasty.
I just think that if we send this out now,
Did we get a picture of the original one?
we did, we had one. It was like two meetings ago or something. We had one.
It's the yellow notice, right? Wasn't that what you're using?
Yeah.
It's pretty much identical to this, minus a couple lines of wording. that was
Yeah.
added extra.
But the look of it was harsh, and it looked like
We got
you're in
rid of
trouble.
the bolding, the underlining, the red text, whatever.
Right,
There were other things.
that was the original objective.
And, yeah, we were trying to go more for an educational because, but apparently that's not gonna,
But what I don't understand is, why can't we approve a softer notice? That's all we're doing.
but do we, okay,
And then do the next step.
And then let's do the next step.
I think it's about the process and another notice after this.
yeah, because if, I think I don't know. We'd probably want the original notice to be a little harder than this if we're going to follow the same process that we have in place now. And then people get this and they go, oh, this is no big deal. Look, it says it's nothing. And then
Isn't
the
that
next,
against
then
the
they get a
original intent?
24-hour notice. Then they get a 24-hour notice after this.
I don't follow you. I mean, is if we want to make the message kinder, this is kinder than what we used last year.
And that was
We
the
think
intent.
Code is wrong.
Oh, that was the intent, but
What damage will this do?
I didn't get the impression that this was hard. I believed this to be less hardline on the timeline than it was.
In what way? The timeline, what was
14
the timeline?
days.
The 14, what was it before? It was
It's
14
always been
days
14
before.
days.
Okay, so
But-
what are you changing as far as
We're changing
being
it so that it
kinder
would,
except for the
because
walk?
we were told that this is more educational than a summons. So this was supposed to be educational. And that's what it, I mean.
Why not just include a
But
attach
what Rita just
this
said
part of
at
the
the
front
beginning of
to
all this,
the summons
it's
or
not.
to the,
it's actually a violation. No,
And
it's-
the only reason I knew that is because Dave said we can't change the wording. This is the legal
This is
wording.
the legal wording.
And so
of
that means this is the
It
notification.
is the notice.
so why not just make a sheet like this and attach it to your yellow warnings that you're giving out?
That's
Instead
the
of-
backside.
I know,
No,
but
no,
what
it's-
I'm
it's
saying
still
is
the backside.
keeping your notices that you have now for now until we get this thing figured out with the 24 hours.
Which
What I would like to
mentioned it.
see, what I would
No, no, no,
suggest,
this
and
is
just do the
first.
front sheet. Because this is confusing. What to do if you receive this notice? Okay, not a summons or complaint, great. Okay, you're just asking me to do this. And if I don't flip over and look at the back, to me, that back, looking at the back is confusing because one, you're patting me on the back saying, please take care of this.
That's what I.
The other one, you're slapping me up the side of the face,
And that's where I
telling
was-
me do it.
And that's where I was.
Well,
going.
do it within 14 days.
But it's one's being nice and one's a slap in the face. And I don't know which one.
What's a slap of, having a time frame is a
No,
slap in
having
the face?
a warning
The-
on it.
being that
Just
this
put
is-
the warning along with this as a separate sheet. In other words, you have a warning, here's the nice part of it that we're giving it to you, but it's a separate issue, we're just being nice along with the warning. Just staple them together and give them to the person.
AJ, is this basically the same thing that we had on the other sheet?
It's a nicer version.
It's
of
a
the
nice,
other
it's a
version.
softer, that was what we were discussing. That
This is a
we-
nicer version than
Here's,
the old.
here's my thing.
I don't care if it's.
We're going.
I like this better than the old one.
I do
okay?
too. You
It's
don't
not
want to
where
use
we
that
want
old
to
one.
be, but it is better. And when,
We
if
don't
we
wanna
at
use
least
that.
approve this so that it can be used, let's then take and put on the agenda the process that we're talking about, which is reviewing the whole thing about the timeline and making a recommendation maybe to council to make changes to that.
Okay.
But I don't think we can do it all at once. It'll hold this up because this is better than what we got.
I agree. I think
It
this
is.
is fine, ready to go. The only thing you might want to add at some point is, once you figure out the process, go back to this and say, this will be followed by a 3-day notice or something.
Well, it's not about
24
figuring
hours.
out the process. This is the process right now.
This
We
is a
need
step
to-
in the
We need to
process.
change this process, or, I'm sorry, recommend a change for the process to go to city council. That's what we have, that would be the next step.
What is the expense of printing this up and then changing it if?
They print them
That's neat.
on a printer there.
This,
So it's not a big.
Yeah, it's not a big
It's
deal.
designed to
Okay.
print it.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, they do
But-
it on a printer.
The 24-hour thing and looking at this needs to be
So
addressed.
all we need is for us to approve this and use this.
Temporarily.
Well, not temporarily. If we approve it, this is what they're using until we change it.
Till we change it.
So
yeah.
AJ, are the other forms that we're currently using, do we order those outside, from outside? So we print those
No.
in-house also?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the city no longer has a print shop, so everything's just printed in-house on the printer.
Yeah, David mentioned that. They had like,
And if the committee did it this way, would that be a problem?
To go to this?
Yeah, to go to this and then just discuss the process later?
No.
Can I make a motion?
please feel free.
Move on.
Yes, thank you.
I make a motion that we accept this with the change that I mentioned, which is making this line where the phone number is a bolder line and a higher font line. Can we do that all in one motion, or do I need to,
If possible, because it still has to be okay.
if possible, that we accept the form as it is
Yeah, and if not, we still go with this one, right? So even if they don't allow the bold and
Right.
underline, we still
If
go.
possible.
Right.
If possible.
All right, second on that motion.
Second.
All those approve, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
And I'd like to make a motion.
No.
I'm allowed to make a motion. That'll be nice. Don't worry.
Good. Well, you
I
did,
make-
you approved the minutes. You were on the motion to approve the minutes. You were the motion to approve the minutes.
Oh,
Congratulations.
thank you.
And if you
I
did,
think
if you-
I would like to move that this committee ask code enforcement to come to the next meeting, and we would like to peel back the onion, so to speak. And we have 3 or 4 issues that we talked about today. And we would like to address those to code enforcement. And so it could be a work session, or it could
They're
be,
always here. I mean, Dave's always here. He's just out at a meeting or something.
well, then I'm asking for it to be on the agenda for next meeting. I think we need to pay attention to this, and I'm saying that we all, I think, agree there's room for improvement.
So, what are you talking about putting on the agenda?
That it's an item for us to discuss next week with code enforcement and to give them our feedback relating to concerns and issues that we think are problematic relating to the code and the enforcement process.
But, so that's kind of what we're going to do by reviewing the code. We can't ask them to do something other than what the code says.
Oh, I know, but
So
we can
reviewing
advise.
it with, there's nothing to advise. I mean, it's the code.
I don't
the
know what
code-
we're arguing about.
the
I'm
code-
just saying,
the code's
this
the
is an
code.
issue that I think we've raised, and I think we should not let it die on the
So, and we're
vine.
not. That's what I asked for. I asked for the next agenda already to have
Great.
that, the notice of violations,
Okay.
codes in there so we can review.
All right.
I agree with
Okay, great.
you.
I think it's relevant, and I think it would be doing our duty to look at it. and to-
Yeah, and that's
I'd
fine. That's a good place to start. I mean, that's a good agenda item for next.
I'd like to see us submit questions to code enforcement before that next meeting so that they can look at our questions and our concerns, and then they can address them fully at that
We
meeting.
can't do that due to open meetings law.
Well, unless we set up a sub.
So what-
That-
yeah, you
that
can-
doesn't-
You can have a, you know what you could do?
Not as a
is-
group, but as
is
individuals
have them
on the
come
committee.
and have code come and present the process and all of the things that apply, not just, you know what I'm saying, all of the things that would apply to the grass and weeds. And then everybody could come prepared to ask them questions.
For the notice of violation, or for the
For grass and weeds.
Process.
grass and
Process.
process for violations,
Notice
all the
of-
way through the notices, violations, summons, all the way
Right.
through. And that's basically what I kind of think I asked.
And if everybody comes prepared to ask questions.
Yeah. And do you know off the top of your head what the code is for that?
For grass and weeds.
No, well, for the for the violations, for how the rules work for violations? Okay.
It's later on in Title 15 or Title 11. It's where it goes over the wording and the process for the violation notices.
So if you go on to the city website and look for municipal code and click on that municipal code, it will take you to an outside source, but that's where all the codes are. And it's under Title 15, grass and weeds
Yes.
and the process of violation.
And you said Title 11, did you mention that? Okay, so it's under the 2, different sections under the 2.
It's stated, I can't remember if it's under Title 11 or under Title 15 for the actual process for the notice. But that notice covers multiple sections of the code.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Next up.
Before we get going too far, we got to swear in our new member.
I know. been swearing at her for the last 5 minutes.
I'll make you stand.
That's okay. Thank you. I appreciate
You
it.
just repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Linda Hart,
Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear and affirm I will
Oh,
support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Englewood,
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Englewood,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
faithfully perform the duties of office
faithfully perform the duties of office
as an alternate member of CEAC during my continuance therein.
as an alternate member of CEAC during my what?
Continuance therein.
Continuance there.
Congratulations, Wanda.
Thanks.
If I can just get the quick signature here, and then I'll get the date and attest it. That's
Who says we have to people throughout the whole thing concentrate where there's the most greatest need? With your people.
no, I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
And then if we could just
I
do a
think if you
motion
go heavy in one area.
Seth as an alternate.
So move.
Yeah.
Well, there are-
No,
I can't do
go
that.
ahead. This is your chance to do a motion.
You have to have his attention though.
I'd like to
And my
move,
mouth, I actually got through this.
That's just for grabs.
I'd like to move that we accept,
Right.
I'm sorry,
I don't know.
Linda
You can
Hart.
ask that question.
as the alternate.
You made a motion.
Oh, sorry, what was it?
Right.
Somebody was bugging me. What's that?
You're making this hard. Move that we accept as the alternate person duly sworn in.
We need, oh, second?
I'll second that. I've had a chance to talk.
Oh.
She's not-
All those in favor say aye.
I,
All those opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries. I didn't know we had to do that for a motion. I didn't remember that.
We did it last meeting,
Did we?
our other new member.
Did we do that for you,
Oh, yeah, for
Eric?
me.
I don't remember there being a motion.
I don't know, but sure there was.
Sure.
He may have been here before. I had classes since I got
No, he was here last.
approved
last
on the
week.
committee, so I haven't been able
But he
to come.
had some other classes. too,
Same.
so he isn't
Oh,
really-
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Section 4 under the meeting minutes from last.
I remember that. That's what I was just about to say.
AJ, can I ask one thing?
Yes.
Just back to that previous topic. Would it be possible for you to share with the committee the specific code for the notification process? I mean, I can try and look it up as sort of like homework before we meet again, just so
So
that
we don't
can,
miss anything.
so we
That
can
would be
come prepared
nice.
You
with
could just-
questions about it.
If you could put it in the meeting
Point us to the-
agenda for next meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
So, because we get that a week in advance.
That'll work.
Yeah, that's
That'll
great.
I'm gonna try to find out. Yeah. Thank you.
I just, we just don't want to push up against those meeting laws.
Agreed, yeah, I want to do it. the right
Yeah, I
way.
think they execute people for that these days.
Yeah.
There is such fear.
Yes, Dave is out. He's actually in a training in Texas right now, so he sent me. So the mission of code enforcement,
Is it your laptop? No, it isn't.
Oh,
okay, I'll try. The mission of code enforcement unit is to enhance and preserve our neighborhoods and business districts while providing a safe, healthy environment. We strive to gain voluntary compliance through education, community involvement, and enforcement of ordinances in a fair, unbiased manner while providing superior services.
actually, if you just turn the speaker off, then we won't hear it. That's all it is. Yeah. Perfect.
So enforcement authority is under 651 of municipal code. The second section, code enforcement officers have the authority and enforcement to respect Titles 5, 6, 8, 9, 11, 12, 15, 16, Title 7, Chapter 1, Sections 1A, 1B, 1C, and 2 of the Englewood Municipal Code. Code enforcement officers are appointed as limited and restricted peace officers only for the purpose of issuing and serving summons and complaints for the offenses committed in violation of the codes. Code enforcement officers are restricted peace officers, so it shall be unlawful to knowingly obstruct or interfere or hinder peace officer, firemen, discharge of their duties, and then code officers within those respective titles as well.
It's not, this is supposed to be a bad thing.
Is it?
Now it is.
So for basic training for code enforcement officers, they are members of the Colorado Association of Animal Control Officers, Colorado Association of Code Enforcement Officers, the Colorado Department of Agriculture, a certified Bureau of Animal Protection Agents. That is an even more enhancement peace officer status under state statute. And then with that, there's 90 hours per year of career-specific classes or continuing education that is done in multiple different aspects. Not only code enforcement, but as well as customer service, de-escalation, CIT, diversity, ethics, as well as emergency management. So this is a graph for 2023, the code enforcement activities. Largest, of course, is our park rules and animal control. So code receives calls or complaints through multiple different avenues to include police dispatch, telephone calls directly to code enforcement, webmaster email contacts, for example, through Q Alert or emails directly to code enforcement, city council requests for information, personal observed or self-initiated calls, assist to police officers and other departments while they're investigating other crime and other violations. For like building department, community development, fire marshal, if they have their violations, they'll ask us for assistance. So code enforcement does partner with other agencies enforcing codes through fire marshal's office, the county, the State Department of Agriculture, as well as our internal building, community development, fire marshal, licensing departments. So the map to you at the left is the current districts. Right now, code enforcement has a staff of 4 code officers. We are short a park ranger that's in the process of being hired, as well as our 2 seasonals. Those positions have been posted. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to hire anyone as of yet, but that is in process.
Was there a code enforcement officer posting also?
That was filled by our then park ranger, who moved up to code officer, and was our park ranger position.
Okay.
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
In turning off the speaker, does that impact the recording for this meeting?
It should not, because the microphone is still on.
Okay,
The speaker should just be if there was someone else talking to us.
okay,
Yeah, no, the microphone is still
perfect. Thank you.
So what positions are open?
on. Park ranger and 2 seasonal code officers.
Park rangers year round.
Yes. Code enforcement officers, when they're not handling calls for service that are dispatched through citizen complaints or through dispatch, do proactively patrol their districts. Like I said, we do have 4 officers, so we do not all work the same days. So there are some days that certain officers from one district do have to respond to calls in other districts as well. So enforcement philosophy, the basic philosophy is voluntary compliance. With voluntary compliance, we work the best we can with the property owner. Communication is key. If property owner reaches out and says, I need another week to get this taken care of, as long as there's forward progress being made, We are absolutely willing to work with that property owner up to a certain point. If it's going on 2 years, that may be a little extensive, but most of the time we do get voluntary compliance. Currently, our voluntary compliance rate is about 96%. That number's a little bit old. I believe we've actually moved up to about 97% this year. So, as for sort of the process, this goes through the process and timeline. So notice of violation is the warning phase. Notice of violation can be done through a phone call. It can be left through a business card on the door. It can be left through a posting notice that we're giving them that warning for that period of just, hey, there's a violation we're concerned about, or possible violation. For example, if there's a car parked on the grass in between two properties, both properties would get a notice to say, hey, contact us. Who does this car belong to? Oh, it's not mine, it's my neighbor's. The neighbor would be moved forward. The second step is posting notice. This is the official start of the enforcement process, which is your 14-day notice. After that 14 days, through municipal code, the next step is summons or abatement.
But the notice of violation is actually arbitrary, right?
The notice of violation is discretionary as it's just a warning. So that could be used, like I said, as just a conversation on the phone. It could be a notice of violation is in a park or a dog off leash. We talk to someone and issue them a verbal warning. It's a verbal notice of violation.
So this is your notice of violation.
No, that is a
That's
posting
posting notice.
It says posting notice of violation.
Of violation, that's confusing.
And that's how it is in
That's the
municipal
second
code, so that
one.
may be something you guys need to.
Okay.
Does a notice of violation happen for a posting notice?
Discretion.
Posting notice has to be done before summons or an abatement.
Right.
Any other questions? So notice of violation is informally provides a 7-day period for the property owner or resident to bring the property into compliance. Notice of violations, a written document that can be provided, description of violations, ordinance that covers the violations and timeline to correct it. It is discretionary, like we've talked, by ordinance. We can go directly to the 14-day posting notice because the notice of violation is strictly. So posting notice is the next step. If the property is not yet come into compliance, or it goes straight to the posting notice process, it is that additional 14 days of a warning to bring the property into compliance. Again, it describes the violation, includes the ordinance wording, explains that compliance, the summons or abatement will occur at the end of the 14-day period. Abatement can continue without notice until the violations stop. For example, one posting notice allows continual abatement of trash or weeds on a property without further notice to the property. So examples of where notice of violation or posting notice may be issued.
Isn't that the bathroom at the park?
This is supposed to be a game park, right?
Yeah. if
And
you
we're
guys wanna
supposed
jump
to
in,
like guess
wanna
what's
look
going
at it.
on.
What's the violation on the car?
So the vehicle at the top is inoperable. It's not currently registered or not displaying a valid license.
Okay.
The one to the right is graffiti. And then the one on the bottom is a pile of
Garbage.
stuff.
Outdoor storage?
Outdoor storage,
Outdoor
junk, trash,
storage.
a little bit of everything.
Where is it?
That I do not know.
I mean, no, I mean, is it in their yard?
Yeah, it would be, I'm guessing probably on the alley based on this photo. Like a backyard alley.
It looks like a back porch, yeah.
But in their yard, not
Correct.
obstructing the alley or.
It's really old. It was 2013.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
don't
the
think it
graffiti
does.
looks like it's 2008, so these are.
Yeah, but that was the bathroom door at the park, at Jason Park. So we're giving ourselves notice.
We do.
Okay. Really, we do?
Yes.
That's awesome.
So certain departments get it, right? Like that, if that was the bathroom floor, it would be Parks and Rec, they got the notice of violation.
For certain city properties, city manager's office has received notices as well.
I actually like that. Okay.
Do you give them a 24 hours after that?
They get it 14 days. So, for example, the vehicle, depending on past history, if it's a first violation, we don't know if the license plate was stolen, if they have a police report, anything like that. So that could be a notice of violation of just knocked on the door. Hey, what's going on with the vehicle? Oh, I just bought it. Great, you have 7 days to get it currently registered. So it's no longer a violation. Same with graffiti, if that was on a private building and not adjacent park. The city normally gets out pretty quick. But a lot of the times businesses, they don't know they got graffiti overnight, or we may know of a larger incident. Again, graffiti in code, they're only allowed 3 days. But this would be the same thing of, hey, did you know you have graffiti on the back of your property? Get taken care of. The bottom picture would be more likely straight to a posting notice, just due to the sheer volume and the size of the violation. That's not something that needs to be taken a little bit more lightly, especially it looks like there are paint containers that are upside down. Remember the other things that are going on, so that would be a posting notice.
AJ, if a car had a temporary tag on it that they taped into the window and the window's covered with snow, would they check for that? Or would they just automatically look at that car and say, you know what, there's no tag?
We will do our best to check.
Okay. The other question I have about that is that the state has been very, very liberal about letting temporary tags expire. If a temporary tag is expired, would it be grounds for a posting notice or a notice of violation?
Yes.
Even though the state is basically overlooking those.
That's not necessarily true.
Well, I know that for quite a while they were.
During the work. Now, I know, for example, Lakewood is almost, I think their last PR thing that they sent out was almost a zero tolerance.
Okay.
That if they catch you driving with expired plates, it's an automatic ticket. If you don't have valid plates or valid insurance, it's out. So it was lax. And now they're starting to enforce. The state never changed their laws on it. So again, that's the laws, that's what we have to enforce. I mean, as always, that's why we want contact with them. I understand during COVID, and we dealt with this quite a bit, that people couldn't get appointments in the DMV. And that's something that all we would require them is say, show us that you got an appointment, and we would close out the case, note that their appointment was made for this date and time, and we would give them the doubt that they'd follow up with that. So yeah, there are certain things that we do understand and that we will work with them as long as we can.
Are we enforcing it now? Expired temporary plates?
Yeah, temporary plates and regular plates. Temporary plates expire on the day that shown. Regular license plates have a 30-day grace period after the month and year.
I mean, we see a lot of expired plates driving around, so.
Yeah, and that, unfortunately, that was from the COVID period that they did have that lax and people couldn't get in to get appointments. And now I guess the state's decided they've caught up enough. And a lot of the police departments are starting to enforce that heavily.
Of course, when you go to renew your plates, even if you haven't done it for a whole year, they charge you for the back. So.
Up to a certain amount.
Yeah, I believe it's $25 a month up to $200. So summons, when the 14-day posting notice expires, the code enforcement officer can issue a summons to municipal court listing violations to the resident or property owner or both. They'll have to appear in municipal court. The charge is a criminal charge and is punishable by monetary fines and may result.
So is that same thing true about the thing we just approved?
Yes, the only one that this does not apply to is the snow and ice, because that was decriminalized in the jail.
Okay.
Has anybody ever gone to jail for weeds and grass?
Not just for weeds and grass, but along with other violations on the property, they're having people sense.
Like trash and.
Yeah, trash after storage, operable vehicles, junk. I mean, those are pretty serious repeat. They ask for jail.
So are we still using a hearing officer for abatement, or we have the right, according to the code, right, to go to municipal court? Are they using municipal court at all?
The municipal court has a hearing officer that they're using for that process.
Thank you.
Abatements, along with the summons, code enforcement officer has the direction and authority to request the court judicial abatement through a private contractor to clean up. The city does use a non-affiliated company to perform the abatements. Associated costs vary and are determined by the necessary work needed to bring the property back into compliance. The charges are originally paid by the city and then billed to the property owner. If the property owner does not pay that fee, it is sent to the county. The county ends up reimbursing the city and then assesses the property owner's taxes for reimbursement. Animal ordinances. Englewood animal ordinances, we are not breed specific. There are no breed bans or anything else. Englewood deals instead with the behavior of the animals and the behavior of the owners. Cats, the Title VII was redone a few years ago to clarify a few things. And cats are now treated similar to dogs. For example, yes, cats must be on a leash and displaying a rabies tag when off their own property. New classifications as confirmed by the court have been established for dangerous and at-risk animals, which allows the city better to track repeat violators, establish criteria for keeping a dangerous animal in the city. If an animal is deemed dangerous, then an inspection permit is required along with the compliance inspection.
Cats on a leash.
Barking dog. No person shall keep or harbor a dog which by loud or frequent habitual barking, yelping, howling, or whining shall cause a serious annoyance to the neighborhood or people passing to and from the streets or sidewalks. Neighborhood, as defined by Englewood Municipal Court, is 2 or more unrelated neighbors. Barking dogs is primarily used for a notice of violation. Because unless we have 2 or more unrelated neighbors that are willing to come forward, we will issue a notice of violation just as basically an educational warning of, hey, we got this complaint, your dog's been reported as barking, but we can't do any enforcement unless we have that 2 or more. So that's a great example of when the notice of violation is used, because it's used and ended at that point, because we can't proceed with enforcement without 2 or more neighbors.
Does that translate to similar noise violations as well as barking dogs, but other things that might just be a noise nuisance? Or that's different?
That's different.
Okay.
Wildlife, code enforcement, animal control officers handle mainly domestic animal issues with limited wildlife. Colorado Parks and Wildlife regulations determine how wildlife is handled. If you know or not, Colorado Parks and Wildlife actually owns all the wildlife in the state, so it's technically their property. And so we have to follow the state guidelines on that. We'll pick up deceased domestic wild animals for public right of way, but if there's a dead domestic animal, private property, it's not the owners, we will remove it. Wildlife is responsible for occupant to remove it. Nuisance wildlife issues, small mammals are referred to a pest control company. Code, we will intervene on sick or injured wildlife, especially if it's a safety hazard. If it can be done safely, certain species, we do have limited access to rehabilitation centers if we have the staff that they have. And then healthy, normal behavior wildlife is left alone, even if it's unwanted. Education, again, is the primary mission. We do get the call all the time, hey, I got stuck in the backyard, there's a skunk living in my neighbor's shed, we want it gone. If they want the skunk to live in the shed, live in the shed.
There's always mothballs and ammonia and
Yep.
eggs.
Violation?
Yes.
If it's inside the
Is-
fence.
on grass.
is it-
It's not on.
That would be, I believe this is a side yard, the largest property.
If it's in a backyard,
Looks like it's in somebody's backyard.
It's not on pavers or gravel, it's on grass. Nothing's allowed.
but even if it's in your backyard, the city has no say.
This looks like it's in a backyard, based on the fence.
So from this, I know the property this is coming from, you have your north and south streets on either side. This is on an east or west, but it's a wide property, so your front door would be just to the right where the house is. And they have a wide side, you have no front yard, you have a side yard and sort of.
So this is on the side.
And
So
it
this
can be
is-
seen
so
from
is
the
it-
street? I'd say it's a violation.
I don't think so.
If it was in a backyard, it's a violation.
So if it's in a backyard, it would still be a violation. However, a neighbor would need to basically come forward and allow us on the property, have to document the violation.
However, historically, I've had people say they call code enforcement and want them to come into their backyard yard, and they don't want to do it.
We have very few that actually allow us, because once we tell them we have to put you in our report that you're allowing us on your
Oh.
property, and it has to be done at all eye level. We have to be able just to walk in the backyard. We can't go to a second story. We can't go to the roof. And that is something that is challenging, especially with some of our new builds that are 3 stories plus a roof patio. We have to go just person on the property, not necessarily climb on the roof to look at the violation.
Well, let me ask you this, because this has probably been 6 or 7 years ago. When I was campaigning, I was knocking on doors, and this lady says, "You want to come in the back and see the neighbor's weeds?" So I go in the backyard, and there's a 6-foot fence like that along between them and the neighbors. The neighbors had Russian thistles that were dead, that were 12 feet tall. Code could have seen them from the alley. I mean, those are noxious. I don't think they're probably there now, but that is a violation.
We had a property last year. The front, they were corner property. The front yard and side yard were absolutely immaculate. However, about August timeframe, you could actually see all the weeds growing over the 6-foot privacy fence. They absolutely got it.
And it was in their backyard.
Because it was still visible.
So is that a violation?
Put gravel under the tires.
Gravel tires and a license plate.
Yeah.
Violation.
What is it?
Is that,
That's an unshoveled wall.
It is a wall, not an alley.
Yeah,
How
there's a
long-
sidewalk.
how long
Definitely.
did the snow stop?
Yeah, well, it's not shown in the picture.
Well, but it doesn't matter, they get 24 hours.
Oh, that's true, that's true.
Well,
Yes.
if it's been, assuming it's 24 hours. it's a violation.
Is that a business? Is that commercial?
I honestly do not.
Looks like residential, it's like a gate on the right.
Yeah.
And it's a
Yeah.
street. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this picture was also off online. Because if you look at the age of those cars, pretty sure some of those were aged before I was born.
They're collectors.
Back to the issue with this, though, I mean, the sticky wicket to me is out on property who are not in the state, who need to contact them. Can you address what process is and what can be done?
For contacting someone else.
Yeah, for them to actually take care of the problem.
They're on
They're not.
vacation?
They own out of state, they are business that's out of state.
But they have property owners, or property renters. Somebody's.
But sometimes they're vacant. Sometimes houses are vacant.
Oh, if they're vacant, then you guys try to find them, right?
We do our best. If you, I'm not sure when that's going to be presented, but there is a vacant and abandoned property code presented. probably here soon, I guess, that will require, if it's approved, registration of properties that are vacant and abandoned, and then contact information violations. A lot of our weed violations, snow violations are those properties that are abandoned and or vacant with no.
Can we abate them and then put a lien on the house?
And that's what we do in doing most of the time.
Is that true businesses? They were.
Cool. Yep.
Violation.
Are those pollinators?
No, that's.
Oh, she's got a point.
Action.
Oh, weeds pollinate.
Siberian.
It's over 6 inches.
Do you think, Mike?
Yeah, but that's not intentional. There's no way.
How our code is currently, that would be violation.
There's no way that's intentional.
And I don't think they're pollinators.
Weeds are pollinators.
Well,
My wife keeps telling me that every time I go to pull up. No, the bees, no, screw the bees.
Violation.
That's on the lawn.
parking on the ground. And no plates on the trailer, right?
Well, you can't, that'd just be on the back, so you can see them.
Multiple, looks like there may be indoor storage or junk behind the truck. Violation?
No.
Those are pollinators.
Those are flower.
No.
Especially with the person out there tending them.
Yes.
That's a no.
Yeah, it's not a violation.
Don't pull my flowers.
I was gonna say, those are,
That's intentional, they're out there maintaining.
how long have we been there?
That looks like somebody's in the process of cleaning up.
I would agree.
There's a tarp underneath. What's that?
Be amazed at how many calls and complaints we get for people in their yards, stuff like this, like after the storm we had this year. They're in their yard cleaning up complaints on, or stacking branches in the alley and all that when they're just trying to stack.
Of course, you know, there's something like that over at Bellevue Park. And actually, somebody called me, my husband, a lot of it is along, there's a lot of brush back there. There's a lot of dead stuff in front of it. Parks and Rec was so.
Wait, is that dog off
Dog
leash?
shop, please.
That's exactly what I.
It's in the yard.
It's in the yard, yeah.
Yard. So if they're actively working, looks like they are, it would just be a reminder, hey, just get rid of it within 7 days.
Yep,
Violation.
that's a yes. Yeah, that's indoor furniture, that's indoor furniture outside.
It's on a covered porch.
That does not look comfortable. That looks like you're gonna get rolled.
Is that a pulse?
If the rat doesn't jump up, bite you on the butt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
My house. Rick alone.
Is it a junkyard? Or is it a person's house?
Have a property
Is
like
it the
that.
backyard or front yard?
I have no idea.
Okay, well,
Oh, there's a skunk.
So top left is a, top right's a skunk, bottom left is a goose with a blow dart head. And then bottom right is two.
None of those are.
I call code
violations.
enforcement.
on the goose, not on the rest.
Yeah, but you wouldn't need to take it to a rehabber.
Nobody wants to skunk.
Yeah, unfortunately, the top left currently,
Yep.
If they're re-accepted, they're euthanized because of aging. So,
Yep.
skunk, if it's one around, it's left
Wait.
alone.
Yep.
The goose will be taken, like, euthanized.
Yep.
And then the raccoons, they would be left. The property owner wanted to remove that pest control, wildlife.
There's babies, there's.
And they look pretty healthy.
Is it legal to catch squirrels in Englewood?
It is.
It is.
Yes,
Good.
squirrels are considered a nuisance violations written. So you can, as a owner, legally build up. There are actually state regulations how, if you transport them, what you practice and how far you can enter gators.
Is it because they're non-native? So.
It's based on territory. You take squirrels too far out of their
Oh,
territory.
yeah, but I was thinking people can, so it's just sort of like you cannot kill microtransfers, like kill pigeons.
Correct.
Is there a nuisance?
Yeah, it's under that.
That was
nuisance.
the nerd thought.
So what happens if you transport squirrels out of their territory?
So squirrels are very territorial. If you transport a squirrel out of its group area, they found that squirrels in the area will actually torture and then killing that new squirrel that's in their environment. So it's inhumane to transport.
So you catch them and you turn them loose.
Most people would say.
We relocate them. What we a lot of the times is down along the, if people do catch them and want to relocate them, along the Platte, where that is less populated, is the best recommendation. Squirrels, most of the time, if you release them between 2 to 5 miles, they can find their way back. So there's a very fine line. You can't relocate them, and that's why most euthanize them on site. That's it. Question?
Jay, I noticed the apartments over by Nixon's Coffee Shop, not far from here. The other day I was walking down there, and those apartments have little patios, you know, like a section. Most of them are well maintained. There were a couple that were really junked up. Bicycles, tires, auto parts, just jammed. And I thought, gee, does code enforcement, or is that the landlord's it looked awful. And what's the status, who's responsible for keeping those halfway respectable when you look at them from the street?
So there's certain things that if it becomes a public health, there's one recently where there was feces and that from a dog that they just let on their patio. There were pee pads that were completely filled up and sort of melding into the concrete. That's something where we'll get involved and go after the apartment manager and the tenant.
Okay.
However, just the storage is an apartment manager issue that they need to enforce whatever their regulations are for storage on the patios. A lot of them through requirements that the city has for them to open includes what they're allowed to store or not allowed to store, similar to you can't have a full-size grill on the apartment patio because of the fire hazard. It's similar, but that's all enforced by the apartment complex itself.
Would code enforcement, I don't know who the apartment manager is, you know, and it's an eyesore. If I called code enforcement, would you all follow up and contact the manager and say, what's going on here?
Yeah, if we get the complaint, we would reach out to their management and basically give them a verbal warning to
Sure.
say, hey, we're getting complaints on this apartment. Can you please enforce it? Same thing happens with like loud noise parties at night, barking dogs in apartment complexes, off-leash dogs in apartment complexes, because it's the dog's home.
Mhm.
We cannot enforce off-leash in an apartment complex if the dog belongs there. So we get those calls all the time. That's something that property management needs to enforce and manage their property for those type of violations. But we would notify them that we received a complaint, and we document on our site, so if nothing was done, that's something where we can go after the property management to enforce it.
What is the code for grills on decks and stuff like that?
So for apartment buildings or multifamily buildings, you can't have more than a 1 pound propane bottle grill.
You can have propane?
Yes, you can,
I
but
thought
it
you
has to
couldn't.
be smaller. There are some complexes that don't allow it. That's their own choice, but by the fire inspection rules, if you're multifamily, like most of our apartments, you can't have anything more than a 1 pound can.
What about these pellet things?
They're concerned about the propane and the combustion of it. So pellets, they're fine at this point. A lot of them don't allow it because of the smoke, but that would be a management lease issue.
That would be bad. Okay. Any more questions on the presentation? Thank you, AJ. That was very good.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is council member.
I don't know that I really have a whole lot to report on. I think that I did hear today that the First Amendment or the council has been considering limiting the time, and it got voted down, but I've heard that it's coming back for us to look at it again. So I know that they're probably, it was pretty close. I think there were only 6 council members there, and the vote was 3-3. So if all 7 council members are there, it may go the other way. It could go either way. It could go up or down about limiting. I do know there's been a couple of times, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, maybe we had the public comment went on for a couple hours, but there was an issue and it needed to be addressed. And personally, I would like to leave public comment like it is. If council changes it, the public could get upset. But
Could
I don't
get
know.
what?
Could get upset. I mean, we will probably, the one thing that they want, well, there's a couple things they want to limit. They're gonna move it from 5 minutes down to 3 minutes. Everybody would get 3 minutes. And then if you've been there within 90 days, you would automatically go to the bottom of the list. So they get different people. I don't know that troubles me as much. So we'll basically see what happens.
Do they, can city council just keep voting every session on something till they get it to go the way somebody wants? I mean.
Well, and this was my personal opinion when it got voted down. According to Bob's Rules of Order, if it was a major thing, let's say like this happened with Code Next, and it went down 3-3, you could not bring that back for a year. But because this is a policy manual issue, really what should happen anytime something is voted down, the side that prevailed, which was the no's, prevailed, you should have to get a motion and a second from the prevailing side to reconsider. But I don't think that's what's gonna happen. I think council just decides what they want to do.
That just doesn't seem right.
I know.
So what is the time limit now? Or is there one at all?
There is, actually,
5
I do think there is in the policy manual, we could limit it to a certain length of time. So right now, if you sign up ahead of time, if you call in by the Wednesday before, you can get 5 minutes. And so that is scheduled public comment. Generally, there might be 3 or 4 people. That's, 20 minutes, maybe 25. Occasionally it can go, it's been as many as all the way up to P, so there could be a lot. Then the people can sign up for 3 minutes at the door. So I think not only do they want to decrease it from 5 minutes to 3 minutes, I think there was suggestion that we set the total amount of time to 45 minutes. And if
For one
that,
person, 45 minutes?
no, 45 minutes for all of public comment.
So
So once you
those
Yeah.
who didn't get in, too bad.
Yeah, you would have to wait
No
until
more
next
time, yeah.
And I would hope that council would reconsider if there is a very important issue that we're voting on that night. My personal opinion is I'm on council to serve the will of the people, and I want to hear what the people think. So, but a lot of council members think that when citizens come, it's impeding our ability to do business. My opinion is the citizens are the business of the city.
But that, I have to say, I've sat in on a lot of city council members over the meetings over the years, and I've seen that so abused by the citizens of this city. And the state capitol, they're usually 3 minutes per person for testimony for everyone. And then if someone on the committee that you're testifying to asks questions of that person, then they can go on and answer all of those questions and add more. And that works out really well. But I've seen such abuse of the city council by some of the citizens of this city. I hate to say that, but it's abusive. And I ended up having to walk out because I couldn't sit there and listen to it. It was that bad. So something maybe needs to be done if it hasn't been done already, but something that's fair to the citizens, but still that limits the people that want to come in there and just abuse the city council members, because that's not fair to the city council.
Well, except for, I mean, the Constitution, and I actually have read this to the council members, because this is what the First Amendment says. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And I mean, when people come and they're frustrated, there's a reason they're frustrated. I don't disagree with you. I have been attacked sometimes, but I can handle it because I know people get frustrated with me. So I don't know.
There's a happy medium, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And finding that, because there's some people that come to city council meetings, meeting after meeting after meeting, and they abuse the city council members. I mean, it is something I would not sit there and take what those people take.
Well,
I don't know how they do it, and that's not what this city is all about. That's not what we should be about. We should be working together to resolve problems, but not abusing those people that have agreed to come and sit on our city council.
I do agree with that.
But shortening the time for somebody to speak is a different issue than respect
Right.
in how you present what you.
Yeah.
Because
How do you
sometimes,
get them to respect? Because
Well,
some
I
of them,
think that's where the rules are.
I just,
That's where
I
you
want
have
to
to
tell
do
you
the
something,
rules.
and this has been my opinion, and I saw one mayor do this about when Joe Jefferson became mayor. That little disclaimer that, and I think it's even on our packet here about respectful. My personal opinion is if the council respects the people will respect the council.
that doesn't
And
always work that way.
And the interesting thing is Joe Jefferson did not read that and never had a problem. Now, there are things that people can say that are against the law. I mean, if they threaten you, or there are certain things that they could be removed from. And but Joe Jefferson was a very respectful person, and he respected everybody. And I think maybe that makes a difference. I know a lot of people get frustrated when council doesn't listen to them, and that's what they feel like. So it is a difficult problem. You are right.
I think limiting time on people is fair, but everybody should have the opportunity to have their voices heard if they want to be heard.
I
And that
agree.
happens to the Capitol. They may go till midnight, and I've been at some
Right.
hearings that have gone till midnight. But everybody had their 3 minutes or their period of time to speak. And that's fair. I don't think cutting people off is necessarily good.
No, I think it's hard. We extended ours here
Yeah,
voted for 5 minutes from 3 minutes
yeah. I think 5 minutes is fair. for the general
because,
public.
because people couldn't get their points across.
Right.
You know, they needed to be able to have the time to
Right.
express themselves.
But that's where your council members or your committee members can ask a question, and that's what allows more discussion to come into it. And that's what happens at the Capitol. If a legislator knows that there's an issue that's complex and that person has talked to them ahead of time, then they will ask a question which allows that person to expand on what's being said. And in that way, they're
they cut
doing
them
it.
off.
What's
So-
that?
So when do they click the clock?
They don't. Once the committee member asks a question, they don't cut them off as long as they're addressing that basic subject or if other questions are being asked. And that's respectful, and that gets the points across and it also gets the information across.
Yeah.
But it's a way to control the discussion so someone isn't going on and on and on and just being
Right, well.
repetitive and disrespectful of the committee. That's not productive.
So it is possible that if you've been there to address council, you get put at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
And so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I
That's
appreciate that feedback.
I'm good with the 5 minutes in advance, 3 minutes there. But what I would say is people who don't live in the city should be at the bottom of the list and only get 3 minutes. Because I have seen a lot of people come in from outside of Englewood, comment, and just sit there and rail for 3 to 5 minutes, depending on what they did or didn't do, that have no impact on anything.
And I agree with that, but I do know that there are times that people have come from outside the city for whether it's a character reference for someone they're supporting or, like
It's different.
the lady from small business, Aurora, well, she's a federal small business, so SBA association. She comes once a year to present and because they help the city with businesses.
But a presentation
Yeah,
is
that's
different
different.
from testimony from the public.
Right. But
That's
it is,
different.
right, it is,
Yeah.
but it's still, she's signing up for public comment to address.
So she would be down to 3 minutes.
But she's presenting.
Well, if she's presenting, that's totally different. If someone's presenting
But there's no
from
place.
public comment.
But there's no place on the agenda.
But you're gonna
That's
limit her.
Okay, then
you're gonna-
then maybe they need to
But
change.
you're gonna limit her to 3 minutes.
No, that's,
If that just goes through.
What
then she
kind
gets
of
limited.
presentation can she give?
no, that's
Right,
not
we're not-
even sensible.
Oh, 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
That. If someone's presenting to the committee on a subject,
Mhm.
that's a totally different issue than the public coming in and making public comments about an
Yep.
issue from their,
Okay,
their.
sorry, we're gonna have to move on.
Okay.
Oh, it's our turn.
But thank you. Yeah, 10 minutes till we're done. So let's real quick do, we're probably not making the communication plan, so, but the magazine subscription,
We have the communications plan.
oh, you have it? No, you have it, but what about the Englewood Magazine submission?
It was to the Englewood, there was an article in the Englewood Magazine
Okay,
that came out. Do you all read it, get it? It was the
Obviously
thing
not.
about do's and
Do's and
don'ts.
It's on my kitchen table, it's waiting for me.
oh,
Okay.
yeah, it's on my dining room table.
Yeah, so look in it. There is it's about a third of a page,
Oh, my God.
do's and don'ts, with some grass around it,
Okay.
for that publication.
Okay, communication plan, let's go real quick.
Yep, here we are. Pass it out. You can look at it at your leisure.
Wonderful.
And Madeline, I'm sorry, it's empty.
Everybody got one?
Thank you.
Rick, you got
Okay.
one?
Do you have one? Or you can have one.
You just gave yours away.
Okay, that's fine.
Mine doesn't have a staple in it. No, I'm just kidding.
I know. Well, you might have
No,
an
stop
extra
that.
one. One that does have a staple.
I don't want one. No, I don't. There's no staple.
Oh, okay. Anyway, Madeline, you may have it. Madeline prepared this based on our input. It talks about the various messages and when we will be doing them and the various tools we'll be using. You can take a look at that. She asked for comment on it. We thought it was, Rick and I and Dave thought it was very comprehensive. I would like to see a schedule of implementation of like, when are we doing this in the Englewood Magazine? When are we doing this at,
Who do you want that schedule
from Madeline?
Okay.
Yeah, and that was my feedback, so I guess we need to probably follow
Oh,
up.
no, I know. I just didn't know if she meant us or Madeline, as far as getting
The
Madeline.
timeline, I think, was through Madeline to come up with.
Madeline,
more
yeah,
specific-
No,
an
right,
implementation
right.
timeline. Yeah, and because in my experience, if you don't have it down to dates or months, at least by month, what ends up happening is it doesn't happen. So, so that was one of my points. The other point was I wanted to have some, they call it swag. We used to call it Chotskys, giveaway things. Dave has doggy bags that they give away at various community events when they're meeting, and they'll have a table there and you'll give those away. But I would like to have the Englewood Fix, because I think that is so critical a piece for people to take control over if they're complaining, do something about it and get involved in the Englewood Fix. So I would like to have magnets done for refrigerator magnets. I really want a lot of information to go out on Englewood Fix because I feel it is so empowering.
But
to the
who does
citizens.
that? I mean, that's not this.
Well, it would come out of Dave's budget, and that was my other.
Well, Dave already said that's not.
We have no budget
Yeah.
for anything like that.
Yeah, it would have to come, if for.
Well, then the police department, I don't know.
Did you have a stand at Celebrate
He
Englewood?
has other things come out of his budget.
We joined the PD.
Yeah, I was in PD had it. PD has their tent thing there with the two tables.
I think that's the communications, budget.
Communications is the one that would do Q alert, because that's actually managed by communications and IT. That's not a code enforcement tool. I mean, we use it, but that's not managed by us.
Okay, well, I don't know
We'll-
whose budget it
Let's
comes
reach
out
out
of.
to Chris and see.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I
I
don't
want to
even know.
get something done
I don't even know.
on that. I think it's pretty important. And we need to flood this community with that information. If there's one piece of information that I'd like everybody to be aware of is Englewood Fix.
Rita, is that a line item for the city council to do for something like that? Because, I mean, we can't ask an individual department to pay for that when multiple agencies use it. Or multiple departments use it. Sorry.
And I do think that the city does, I don't remember, of course, I haven't read the whole magazine yet either. I think they highlight Englewood Fix in there. I mean, council is told that, if people call, they can call Englewood Fix. If there's code enforcement problems, do they get reported to Englewood Fix?
Yeah, we get them all the time.
Okay. And is it sent to you? Somebody else monitors it, but,
Dave and I monitor anything for code enforcement.
okay.
So is Englewood Fix just for code enforcement?
No.
So where did the where's the funnel? Where's all it going?
That's what I was asking her.
So,
Yeah.
if people want to report potholes, there's all different kinds of things that people can
Right.
report there.
And then somebody divvies it up by department?
Yeah,
It's actually all done by the computer system. So we go through, we're actually in the process now with communications, going through and reviewing all the different categories. With staff leaving and coming, especially in other departments, each different category is assigned to a certain department and a certain employee in that department. So anything that's submitted in there that's related to code enforcement, Dave and I get notified that there's a new report. As soon as it's submitted, we get an email notification that there's a new complaint or a new report on Englefix, that we can go in, look at what it is, print it out, give it to the district officer, and then send our response back that we've received it and we'll conduct our enforcement. And that's sent through all the other departments as well. How they manage that is up to them, but that's how we manage it for code.
Okay. All right.
I think this is bigger than us.
Yeah, no,
Right.
no,
And I
it
think,
is.
which is actually a good thing, because I think you can get.
That's
more
fine
support
with me. I like
from
it.
other areas that would benefit from like a magnet or an easy, it's nice to have it in a magazine, but how long's a magazine hanging around? And so if you had something that was actually on the refrigerator,
That's why I was thinking
right.
line item in the budget somewhere for something, I don't know.
And the police department used to do their non-emergency numbers for National Night Out, so everybody had that non-emergency number to call.
But that was for the police department.
Yeah, that was for the
Yeah,
police
this
department.
this
but
is all
yeah,
encompassing.
But that's the whole, yeah.
So that might
Now they
be a
post on
great
Facebook.
idea for like the city manager's office or even the city council table. I mean, I think at the city council table at Celebrate Englewood, I think the city council had suckers. But, something like that would be good.
They have what?
Lollipops.
Oh,
I thought you said they are suckers.
that's what I thought she said. I was gonna say, that's a weird thing to call your friend, but okay.
Well, I just think it's a fabulous mechanism.
Okay,
I do have two quick questions. Would you like this included in the minutes or wait until it's fully done and approved? Is question number one. Question number two, on your winter 2024, we have no code on holiday decorations. So the second page where it's giving guidelines, provide guidelines for safe and appropriate holiday decorations, maintain neighborhood safety and aesthetics. There is no code to enforce that, so I don't know if that's something that you even want to include.
We did see it in
I
the
was gonna say,
summary.
where did we see that?
Yeah.
And if it is in code, it's probably one of the sections that we're no longer allowed to enforce. That's going to be done with the update for being unconstitutional. I know we had a case last year during Halloween where a house was hanging dolls by their neck in their front yard. We got a whole bunch of complaints on that. It's perfectly legal. So no, is it aesthetics and appropriate? Not everyone would agree, but it's completely legal.
No, I think the thing that we read is that it's the time frame,
we'll review and approve.
like
We'll review
Christmas.
Next time. Next meeting.
Can we, maybe, I don't think we need to vote on this tonight. This
No,
is
I just said, we'll do it.
Why don't you just all read it and then
Yeah.
we'll talk about it
On
next.
the,
Yeah,
next
we'll
time.
review and then,
I think that Dave wanted to take a look at it too.
and we've already so there's no unfinished business. The new business, which we were gonna discuss the starting point, we've already done that, so we're good there. The next meeting's on July 17th.
So we're skipping June.
We are skipping June, which, to be honest, I probably wouldn't be here.
June 19th is Juneteenth, which is a city observed holiday, so
That's a state of holiday, which, as a state employee, I really like. Okay, we are adjourned. Do we need to do it? I don't need to motion that one, right? Nope, okay. Okay, we're adjourned. Everybody, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel.
I reflect.
Did you?
I didn't just
Oh,
like this,
my gosh.
Rita?
big,
The thing of the perfect